Welcome, everybody, to a brand new episode of DTown TV, the free show for DSLR shooters. My name is RC, and I'm here with the incomparable Mr. Larry Becker. What's
Hey,
going on,
RC.
Larry?
Hey, man, it's good to have you guys back. I was so lonely last week with everybody but me out at Google Plus for photographers.
It was a good time. It was a really, really good time. I saw the show. I was just like, Larry's ably manning the ship.
Oh, you're being too kind. I was like, okay, so my next thing is gonna be. It just had no life, you know.
No, we're happy to be back. It was, you know, great time. Great. I'm still sporting the red.
I know.
So
well, yeah,
I'm still pretty, I'm still pretty rocking on the red thing here. So yeah, well, actually, we got these at the conference because we had these live chats that we would have.
Right.
So we would just kind of have the iPads kind of setting it up. So
these are cool. These are from.
These are Element Case. I'm a big fan of Element Case stuff. So
that's the name of the company.
That's the name of the company.
Case.
Element
I know, because they're not cases.
But anyway, so that's good. So
yeah.
this is where I'm keeping my notes, and I like the fact that I can just kind of switch this pole and take this. I'll stick it right there.
That's cool.
Make it a little higher, or
it's nice.
Make it a little lower. But anyway, that's not it. But we have tons of different things to talk about. We're talking about, we got a tip from Moose. You got something on metering modes. I want to talk to you about the tripod.
Okay.
Before we actually start, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Thank you,
Tell
Mr. RC. Well, I wanted to do something. You know, I talk to people all the time that are just getting started, just kicking off, and I every once in a while kind of want to go back to some of the more basic things. And one of the things has to do with automatic metering. Now, obviously, when your camera is in manual mode, you're choosing everything about that exposure. But there are a lot of modes that are like aperture priority, and I shoot an aperture a lot, and the exposure. The metering for that exposure is selected by the camera. The camera meters how much light is coming in and makes some decisions on the exposure that way. And so when you get your camera and choose which type of metering, there are actually 3 kinds of metering. And I want to show you the exact same thing taken 3 times and then just kind of explain why it does this. So let's have a look at my iPad. And this image, backlit image, it's a little plant that we have here in the office, and I took it with a real hard backlight. And this is something called matrix metering. Now, this is where I generally leave my camera. On a Canon, it's called evaluative metering. On a Nikon, it's called matrix metering. And it basically looks at the overall frame and tries to guess what the best possible exposure is, blending all of the foreground, background, and light and dark elements of the image. And it gives you a pretty decent image. Now, next up is center weighted. And what it does is it looks a bit more at the middle zone of the image and says, okay, well, I'm going to give that a little bit more value. And so I'm going to expose a bit more for just that spot, and ignore a little bit less around the outside edges. And that's called center weighted average metering on Canon. On the Nikon, it's called center weighted metering. And then finally, this is spot metering, where I must have picked a really dark spot that I pointed at. Right in the center, you can see, is the darkest point in my image. And so spot metering is picking up and fixing the exposure just for that spot. Now, nothing else changed. I didn't change my aperture, but it is changing things about the exposure based on that metering information. And oh, how did that get in there? That's where I was this past weekend.
Nice.
In the Bahamas. That's from my balcony. But anyway, back to the metering thing. So, so what I'm getting at is not always, but most of the time, I leave mine in matrix metering or evaluative metering mode, because that's going to be the best balance for the overall scene. You don't know what you're shooting from one second to the next. But in certain circumstances, when you have a really dark object or somebody that's backlit or something like that, you might benefit from the spot metering or the center weighted metering to kind of balance out that exposure. So you don't have to necessarily think immediately exposure compensation. So let's say you're taking a picture of somebody and they're kind of dark, but they're backlit, and you want to expose more for them, then spot metering does help.
Like 2 cases that usually I hear about that kind of stuff. Brad shoots a lot of concert photography.
Yes.
In concert photography, when you're sitting around and you actually have like a band or guitars or something like that, usually you have lights kind of going around all around you.
Unpredictable lights.
Right. So they're moving in all sorts of different places, and you want to be able to calculate for that. if you're on matrix, the exposures can be really, really off because these things are computers. So they're sitting there and they're looking at the entire scene and they're going, exposed for this, no exposed for this.
Yeah, it's trying to balance across the whole scene.
Spot meter, you know exactly what you're going for.
Great way to go, yeah.
Another thing that you can use it for is HDR.
Really?
Whenever I do any kind of HDR stuff, I usually pick up some section of the scene that I want to be the actual base exposure of the image.
That's a good point.
You know, rather than using, like, if you're looking at an HDR shot and you're looking at, let's say you have something that's under an awning, right? Well, you don't want the area directly under the awning to be a shade spot.
And I've always, and RC wrote the book on HDR, but I've always, with my HDR photography, I've always just counted on the bracketing to cover the range. And in this case, you're actually being more precise by using spot metering.
This is the start of that point, and then from there, the brackets will take care of all of the heavy lifting.
Very cool.
No, just a couple things there.
Okay, so I've learned something too on my own tip. That's cool.
Speaking of tips, Mr. Moose Peterson has got a tip on renting lenses. Take a look at this.
If you're a photographer, I bet you've bought a new piece of gear, especially a lens. I can say in my 30 years, I have done my fair share of buying and playing with new lenses. Now, this tip is really kind of important in the process of buying, and then after you bought the lens, make the most of that. So there's a lot of lenses out there. Which one do you buy? Darn good question. And all manufacturers, being in the business of selling, constantly come out with new lenses to what? Tempt those dollar bills out of your wallet. Now, when I was started out with a 400mm lens. For wildlife, it's kind of like the primes, where you start. And then after time, that wasn't quite enough. I needed longer. How much longer? Do you get a 500, a 600? Do you get 600 teleconverters? What do you do? Well, I'm going to encourage you, first of all, to go out and rent. Don't buy. Go out and rent what you need first. Try it out. And here's the key to renting. You don't rent it so you have it for a couple days. You look at it, you kind of stare through it, you photograph at something on the wall or look out the window. No, you photograph it so you have at least a week. And you pick a week where you can go out and really do some shooting. Some serious concentrated shooting. And then you go out and you use that lens and you pound that lens. If it solves your problems, it's the lens for you. If not, return it and you're further ahead. Then once you buy that lens, you made your decision. At least what I do is I marry myself to that lens. I have that lens and I shoot everything with it for a couple weeks. Every possible scenario. I get to know the strengths of that lens, the weaknesses of that lens, how it works in my style of photography, and what problems it solves. A real good case in point, when I first got the 800 5.6 lens, now long gone, okay? You can find it maybe used. I got that lens because of the very narrow angle of view. And at the time I was living in Santa Barbara. Good place for birds, but can be a challenge. So I went literally to the local duck pond. Seriously, that's a great place. And you just pound away. They're just ducks, right? But the important thing is I could use that lens, and I used it in and out, day in, day out for a couple weeks, looking at how does it solve the problems? How can I use a narrow angle of view to isolate the background? How close do I need to get to a duck to get the image size I want? All of those things come from just pounding that lens continually. So it's real simple. When you're going to go buy a lens, rent first, okay? Check it out. Then once you buy it, marry yourself to it so you know all it can do for you. That way when you get to site, you say, I'm going to shoot, you know you grab the right lens, you can make the right shot.
Mr. Moose Peterson, always a wealth of knowledge. He's got something, he's just got tips all the time. I love going on photo walks with him because he comes over and goes, you know, if you change this, if you do this, and look over there. And I love it with wildlife. He's really helped me out an awful lot. He says, stand over there and the animals will come up to you as the tide comes up. Cool
he just
stuff.
slathers you in bacon. He's just like, that bear will be here in no time.
I thought that was for some other reason. But we gotta take a break.
Let's take a break.
We're gonna be back in just a minute, and you've got a cool tip on tripods.
Right.
I really believe that your photography is a reflection of who you are. In my posing class, you're going to learn a lot of things. How to pose a bride and bring out the best in her shape and her curves. How to photograph a groom, because many of us who may focus on the bride will ignore the groom. And getting your clients to mirror you. Mirroring, I find, is the best way of getting people to pose. I'm Jerry Gionis. Check out my class on the fine art of posing at kelbytraining.com.
And we are back. You know, seeing that commercial reminds me, thank you to Kelby Training for DTown TV. They are the reason that we're able to do all this cool stuff. And that looks like a really cool class. Neither one of us has seen it yet.
Yeah, Jerry Guiones is the man when it comes to that kind of stuff, portrait and posing and working with brides. He does a lot of wedding work. So I'm a big fan of a lot of the stuff that he does. So I was really excited to hear that he was doing a class, and it's going to be one of those things that I'm going to fire up as soon as I get out. Just check it out. It's just cool.
Swing by Kelby Training. There's stuff on everything that you as a photographer would care about, whether it's post-processing, Lightroom, Photoshop, or the actual process of taking pictures. And it's from all the masters, from the really great working professionals today. Kelby Training, there's just nothing like it anywhere else. And you can try it out for free. It doesn't hurt. Try it out. Yeah. So thanks to our sponsor,
KelbyTraining.com. KelbyTraining.com. Grab all of that information. So
now you've got something with tripods.
Yeah, it's a little bit of show and tell and a part of a tip.
Yeah, and you're killing me. He showed me this at break, and I'm like, I want one of those so bad.
All right. So anyway, so this is really right stuff. So basically, here's the deal, right? When you're working with tripods, and I tell this to people all the time, the best way to be able to take your photography further, in my opinion, is working with a tripod.
Sure.
The biggest problem that people have with working with tripods is a lot of the times they're like, hey, I don't want to carry it, I don't want it to be too heavy, or I don't want to spend a lot of money on it. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the tripods that I use, and specifically this new one that I just got that I happen to think is really, really nice. This is the TQC14 from Really Right Stuff. I like it. It's a great carbon fiber tripod. Right? Now, why do I use carbon fiber? It's durable, it's light. Right? The tripod that you get is only as good as the amount of times that you actually carry it. I've seen people go out there and they don't, they spend some money and they turn around and they're like, all right, well, the tripod that I got was aluminum, it's heavy, I don't want to grab it, I don't want to schlep it out, I don't want to do any of that stuff.
Well, and you're also assuming into the middle of the range, because I did the stupid thing when I first started into photography, and I bought the cheapos from the box store. So we're already like taking it a little past that. Just save yourself the money and don't get one of those. They're worthless.
Yeah, there's that thing where there's that old saying that says, buy cheap, buy twice.
Yes, that's so true.
Don't do it. I mean, if you're going to spend a lot of money on your camera, spend a lot of money on the gear that's going to support your camera. I'll talk about that in a second. So this is the tripod, right? So you want a tripod that's going to be as light as you can carry it, so that you don't have any excuse. You're not sitting there going, oh, well, it's in the car by the time I get it out, blah, blah, blah. So the normal tripod that I use, my battle-tested tripod, is this one. This is a Gitzo 2541. Anniversary edition. That's a little bit true. The Google thing. But it's this is the 2541 Gitzo, right? And Gitzo's kind of like the standard,
it's the
gold standard for tripods. And on top of it, I have a BH40 head from Really Right Stuff. So this BH40 head, why do I like the heads? Take a look at this. Look at the front.
That's my head. I love that ball head.
Look at the front of that head. I actually took it clear off on a shoot, dragging it under a car. So it was. This thing is all scuffed and it's all beat. It's kind of hard to see in the camera, but this thing has been beat. I can't tell you how many times I've taken this right here. So you see scuffed in the back. This is bent right here on this ring, on this little metal part, more times than I like to count. It locks. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But it's just because, I abused the snot out of this thing. And every time I come in here and I grab a monkey wrench or I grab something and I'll just kind of pry it back, bend it right back into place, and it's still going. It's tough as nails. So this has been the head that I've used for a very long time for this kind of stuff.
Right.
Now, what happens, I don't know which camera I'm going to, so I keep like darting between the two. So this has always been the head that I've used, and these have always been the sticks that I've used. But the problem is that they're relatively big, right? So putting this inside of a suitcase has always been a pain. I've always had to
take the head off.
Take the head off and put it at an angle. So I wanted to find something that was really good. Now, this is great. I love the tripod. I probably would want to get a Really Right Stuff version of it to kind of match it up, but that's no here nor there. Now, this is the TQC14. So this is a much smaller travel tripod. If you look at them comparatively.
And it's lighter.
Right? So it's a lot lighter. That's the other thing. And then there's this head. So this is the BH30 head, and it's good from a comparative standpoint. If you look at this head, there's two things that you're going to be missing from this 40 head. So if you look here, there's this thing right here, which is a friction knob, which controls the friction of the ball head. That's missing here. And in here, you have one spot where you can turn and then you have a second spot over here where you can turn.
Right.
So there's 2 of those notches, 1, 2. You're missing one of those here. Does it matter to me? Not really. I have one, I'm good. So those are the 2 major differences between the 2, but this one's rated for the same weight as this is. I've put up to a 200 F2. Now, I wouldn't recommend it, but I've put up to 7200, D3S, a whole bunch of other different types of things on top of it, and it's been good. Here's the tip also. How do you carry a tripod? A lot of the times people are like, oh, well, you know, I don't want to bring it with me. I don't want to bring it with me. This is my bag. This is what I carry usually, book bag or gear or whatever. Doesn't matter what kind of bag you use. This is a think tank bag. It's a shapeshifter. So I carry my bag like this when I'm going on a gear thing.
Sure.
And then I'll turn around and I'm like, where do I carry my tripod? I take the leg of the tripod, pull it forward, right in there.
Now, you can't do that with a heavy tripod, with an aluminum one.
Yeah, I mean, it's uncomfortable, but that's it. Like, a lot of the times I don't like using the hooks that they have in the back and the ropes and all that stuff, but by just having it right there, I put my hand right in front of it, I know exactly where it is, and I just walk around.
That is a cool way to go.
And then as soon as I get to wherever I need to go, I just pull it out, and I just sit down and start to work.
Sometimes he walks around like this in the office.
Yeah? I know. But anyway.
No, but that's a great setup. It's a great tripod. And then I'm thinking this is light compared to what I normally carry around, because I don't do a lot with the tripod.
But look, here, look, I used to do it with this. It's not a...
That's pretty big to do.
But still, I mean, all it does is it runs down the side of my leg.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not really all that bad. And then that's it. You don't have an excuse. If it's light enough and it's not dragging you down, you don't have an excuse to carry it. So that's what I would do.
So
TQC14.
Are we giving this away on the show?
Ooh, I don't know about that, Mr. Becker. I don't know about that. But and this is the other thing that you can do with it, which I don't mean to turn this entirely too long, but I want to be very careful with this. It's a shorter tripod, but this is one of those tripods from a travel standpoint. Because of the size, I want to make sure that I can get a lot of height out of this, right? So here, all of this stuff is extended. And what they recommend for this, and I found that it wasn't really that much of a problem, is to take this column up.
Okay.
So if you're right here, I mean, in this, pretty decent.
Yeah.
Right? And then inside of here, so that's your head. So your camera is literally like right up here. I'm about 5'11", 6 feet, so that's not too bad.
That's pretty strong.
Not bad. Yeah, I'm digging it. I'm digging it quite a bit. But so that was my first impressions with all of it. I'm really, really excited. If you want to get something like this, make sure you take a look at the Really Right Stuff website. I think we have it right there. That's the TQC14 tripod with a BH30 combination ball head. That is the gold standard, I think, for this. And I kind of like the dumb things, like the little crosshatch pattern. You know, I think it looks nice. The rubber feet.
I've never seen anything but first-rate quality from the guys at Really Right Stuff.
You know, it's I've always used their heads, and now their tripods are just like,
yeah,
nuts. But anyway, what are we doing now? Contest time.
Well, we got to take a break first.
Okay.
And we're going to come back and give away some stuff. I got a big stack of books for you guys and more. So we'll be right back after this message from our sponsor.
I'm just going to leave it right there.
Have you been looking to take your photography to the next level? Learn from some of the world's top pro photographers and instructors? At kelbytraining.com, that experience is only a few clicks away.
Hey Jason, I'm glad you joined me today on Kelby Training. We're going to be getting some great motocross action. Guys are going to be flying over my head. Jason, we're going to be using high-speed sync and speed lights to get some great action.
Whether on location or in studio, our instructors teach you some of the most sought-after techniques, giving you a first-hand look at their work step by step. It's unlimited one-on-one training, giving you 24-hour-a-day access to hundreds of exclusive classes.
Well, Jason, we had a great class today. I hope you learned a lot with our speed lights and high-speed sync action. Remember, kelbytraining.com is a one-stop shopping for great learning, great photography classes. We'll see you next time.
Experience a class on kelbytraining.com. Subscribe today. Visit kelbytraining.com for more information.
Welcome back to DTown TV, the free show for DSLR shooters. RC, Larry Becker. That was Kelby Training. That was Dave Black. You got to watch it. Dude, it's phenomenal. I love Dave Black.
You have a photographer site.
I do have a photographer site. So take a look at this photographer. This is going to be our recommendation for the week, Joanna Kustra. So this is the website. Just great portraiture. I kind of like that kind of fanciful, right? Quick. It almost kind of
stylistic.
Yeah, it's very, very stylistic. It reminds me of like Vanity Fair covers and Vogue covers and things like that. So she does some beautiful work, and I love her children's stuff. I think it looks really, really nice. This is a person that I think we should be watching on more. I love that. I love that kind of greenish, desaturated kind of look.
Yeah.
So she does great, great work. I just got turned on to her recently, and I'm like, you guys should see her too.
Where's she based, do you know?
London.
Okay.
London photographer. So
Joanna Kustra.
Kustra.
Very cool.
Great stuff. Joanna, we absolutely love it. Contest time.
Yeah, it's time.
You're going to give away all of this stuff.
Yes, and you guys know how it works. If you say anything about us, or not even about us, just add a comment with your signature, your information to...
No, they're going to go to the kelbytv.com website, /DTown TV. Go ahead and go in there, leave a comment. Right, so go right here,
And that's the only
find
place.
the show.
So no matter where you're watching this show, if you're watching it somewhere else...
Right, YouTube, Google+, wherever it is that you're going, this is the only place that our producers are actually picking content. So you got to go there. You're going to win Steve Simon's book. Steve Simon, great photographer.
Good.
Photoshop to Lightroom, snapshots of great shots by
Jeff Ravel.
Jeff Ravel.
Buddy.
Nice. Mr. Tom Bowl. Right, Adventure Sports Photography. Tom Bowl's the man when it comes to sports stuff.
Perfect picture.
Right, Skip Cohen. Right, he does Skip Summer School kind of stuff.
Sure.
So he's doing that. And then Jason Canlis, who does the Film Is Not Dead. If you're a film shooter, this is the book you want to check out.
Also, the most unique gray card I've ever seen. It's not a card. It's actually a 3D object, and you can set it on top of a light stand. It's got a 1/4x20 screw mount on the bottom, and you can't really see it in here, but there's a hole, and you could just set it on top of one of those little brass monkey things on
We should
top
do
of
like
it.
a little demo on how to use that and how to work with that.
Yeah.
We'll do that a little bit later in the season.
It's cool because it's 3D, so you got a gray card that's more than just a flat surface. You can put it in different lighting conditions and pick up the grays, and so kind of a cool thing.
Very, very cool.
All this to one person.
One person. So make sure you go in, leave a comment, and hopefully you'll win the prizes. Larry.
Sadly, this is the end of episode 115, but I'm so thrilled my buddies are all back.
Yeah, so thanks so much. Thanks so much for holding on the fort.
RC,
I
thanks.
appreciate it, and I appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you guys next week on DTown TV.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Thank you.